Hello and welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Orange podcast. And we can finally talk about another victory for the Seasiders as Rampant Blackpool beat Rotherham 3-0 away from home. A goal from Imre, Bloxham and Fletcher ensured that we secured all 3 points, and it was a dominant display and a good defensive display as well. And tonight we'll talk about that game and look ahead to Saturday's fixture against Lincoln, hopefully within an hour, and give you a little insight into Saturday's opponents who are pretty high up the league and see why they've been so successful this campaign. But tonight I'm joined by, first and foremost, Hoggy. How are you, mate?
Very well, thank you, Tom. Much better than last time we spoke, certainly, anyway.
Yeah, and I'll be all right if I remember who scored our first goal. It's too quick for me to remember. Martin, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, Hoggy's just said, what a week. 2 wins change your week, don't they? They change your outcome and your outlook on life in a weird way. So yeah, good.
I'm not sure beating Carlisle and Rotherham make me change the aspect of my life, but it was certainly joyous, like waking up in the morning and realising we've scored 3 goals, not conceded any.
I think if we'd have lost to Carlisle and Rotherham, I'd have been questioning the point of life, to be honest. So I'm not sure. Yeah. I kind of get where Martin's going.
Both ways.
Yeah, so gentlemen, we'll start off as we usually do with the lineup. I'm going to just share my slide if I can actually get it up. So obviously Peacock Farrell starting goal. No Casey, so Heckway, Horsfall and Husband making the back 3 with the welcome return of Imre. Coulson on the other side, Brown and Honeyman in the middle, and a welcome again return of Bowler with the usual 2 suspects up front in both Bloxham and Fletcher. Hoggy, I'll start with you. Some reservations when it came to the lineup. Obviously the lack of, first and foremost, Casey, who's been ever present, I think, in the defence so far this campaign. The introduction of Heckway after his honking performance versus Reading, and obviously Husband coming in as well. So I suppose not a criticism of Husband or anything like that immediately, but obviously there was some nervousness around the back 3, obviously, but you caveated that with Danny Imre starting, in a Blackpool shirt once again after that injury.
Yeah, so the team sheet comes out with some positives. There's some question marks, like you say. How long could Husband last? How fit was he? But I think it's clear to see after the game last night. We've built him up to a quite nice position now, where I think he might be playing 90 minutes on Saturday, all being well. Always nice to have a naturally left-footed centre half on the left side of defence too. And then you cross over to the right-hand side. Obviously, I think it's fair to say we'd all like to see Casey there at the minute, but it wasn't the case. And Iakwe came in after what I can only imagine Everett just said go away and have a week off after his, like you say, his performance against Reading. Came in and did a job, is what I'd say, for the team in that position. And then the real positives of Imre coming in, and I know you forgot that he scored, Tom. It was that quick, but that just shows how much of an impact that he had for us last night. He was absolutely superb. And the rest, yeah, pretty much picks itself. I don't know, maybe I'd quite like to see, I know Everett likes Banks on the right hand side, cutting in his left, but could you see Banks on the left potentially? But I kind of get why Everett went with Coulson, probably more of a solidified left hand side, knowing full well that Imre would be playing pretty much up front between Bloxham and Bowler down that right hand side. So yeah, take the starting lineup, and again, Everett was proved right, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Martin, I have become a massive fan of Ashworth. I think he's fairly aggressive, he's solid in a tackle. I kind of expected him to keep his place in the back 3. And granted, in hindsight, it's easy to say, obviously, after a 3-0 victory. But Banks, I understand more than Ashworth. Is it Everett's way of managing minutes, managing the team over the busy Christmas period? Or, do you just think he took his managerial stance and said, this is the team I think is going to win, and obviously he was proved right. But I think Ashworth, every time he's played, he hasn't done anything wrong for him to lose his shirts. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it?
I think both Ashworth and Banks are very unlucky. I think Ashworth, personally, I would have started before the game. I would have said start him if Casey's not playing. Banks is just a victim of being very, very, very good as a winger in a system where we don't play them. And I think it's all right playing him at home against the National League side where he's got time and space. And by the way, this is not a criticism. I think Rotherham was just not, and I agree with what Everett said. It's a weird thing to say when you got somebody who's bending him in from 20 yards with a fairly regular basis. But I think it wasn't the game for him. I think it's a battle against Rotherham. It's a tough, tight game. It's a nasty game. It's a horrible game. Rotherham are not, they're a dogged side, aren't they? And we don't really know yet whether Banks can do the defensive side, because no matter which way you look at it, when you're away from home, you don't have the ball as much, and you have to do a fair bit of tracking back as a wing back. And he obviously doesn't feel that, and it's not his fault because Banks has never been a defender and probably never will be. So it's probably not the right game for him, really. And he's so unlucky because he's such a good player. And in any system that didn't play wing backs, he'd be starting every single week, you would like to think, wouldn't you? But so, yeah, I think it made sense. Although Ashworth End, Ihekwe probably had his best game for Blackpool, which I know it's a low bar, but I do think he had his best game last night. After about 10 minutes, Rotherham realised that he used to play for them and started booing him. It seemed to G him up. Yeah, it was good.
I thought it was okay. I think we're going to talk about the back line in a minute. I still think, despite his recommendations when he first came, his defending seems to be, my first port of call is to head the ball somewhere that isn't in front of me, rather than obviously me thinking about where he's going to hit the ball. Because there's many times last night where he passed the ball directly straight out to the players on the edge of the box, or he headed it sort of straight back into danger. But I'm not saying he was poor by any stretch of imagination. I just think that's where, as a defender, I'd prefer him to potentially, as a back three, think about how he's defending and maybe think about the pass. But I might just be overly critical for a centre-back that's obviously ageing a little bit and is used to defending a lot at Sheffield Wednesday, right? So they were used to just defending for their lives. So, but on to more positive matters. Hoggy, the fastest of starts. I don't think we've scored a faster goal in since maybe Carlisle and beating 1-0 under Critchley. But, good to pick up the ball, blocks them. And we'll come on to talk about Fletcher and Bloxham. But I think one thing Bloxham did really well was run between the lines. And as soon as he picks up that ball, he passes it to Bowler and he makes a dart and run through the centre of the defence, which we talked about the lack of against Reading, running the lines and making the defenders break out away from obviously the wing backs, etc., which created the space for Bowler to run into. Obviously played a really nice weighted pass to Imre. Keeper probably should have done better, but this is exactly what Imre is all about. We saw it against the likes of Huddersfield, etc., when he was fit. And his first shot on goal after injury resulted in Blackpool obviously off to a flyer, and it was just a delight to see him back, first and foremost, but to see that ball ripple in the back of the net and those players sort of celebrate was just, an impact of Everett's sort of training, as Bowler said in his post-match interview. And obviously Imre's delight to be back in the team.
Yeah, 100%. We criticised the team under the previous manager, saying how slow and sloppy we were starting the game. We'd just sit back in a bank of 4-4-2 and let them come on to us, and that'd be that for the game. But like you say, we certainly took the game to to Rotherham from the word goal last night, and it's important that if we are a team, and Everett spoke about this a lot, he was delighted for the players, the hard work they're putting in. It started to come to fruition last night. The run that you talk about Bloxham was vital, because without that, like you say, the space doesn't open up for Bowler in the middle. It's a selfless run, because they also importantly pulled Reece James into the middle, and then Powell had to tuck inside to try and track Imre, made a mess of it through his legs. Imre obviously then took full advantage. And again, the difference between Imre and Lyons. Lyons has been in similar positions in the last few weeks that we've had, but again, we're not even hitting the target. It's not just Lyons; it's other players as well. But you hit the target, and the keeper has to make a save. And at League One level, as we've seen time and time again, keepers more often than not don't and aren't up to it, and it's gone straight through him, and it's the perfect start. So yeah, really positive. And we managed to keep it up as well straight after it as well. It's quite nice. We did double the lead eventually, and we'll come on to that shortly. But we didn't just retreat, so to speak. So, yeah, fantastic start, and same against Saturday, please.
Martin Bowler, I don't know if you watched his post-match. It's on the official site. I think Bowler speaks exceptionally well about many things, really, as he's gone through his footballing career. But yesterday he said, and I hate to relate the two in some ways, but I think Gary Medine used to talk about how detailed Critchley was, and now Bowler's saying the detail he goes into is ridiculous, and he wants to start every game like a house on fire, and that came to fruition yesterday. And the fluidity of us it's hard to potentially to make those moves immediately, isn't it? Like a minute 30 into a game.
Yep.
But from the left-hand side, the centre midfielders all running up whilst, Bloxham had the ball. It was first and foremost great to see. And those positive movements within the team create energy and create space and create opportunities rather than us just sitting on the ball in midfield. Everyone was immediately up in Rotherham's faces. And through the years, as we know, since 1997, we haven't beaten, I say, teams like Rotherham.
I was there.
In those in those dogged games and in those games where we weren't really up for a battle, like the Port Vales and on New Year's, etc. All those games in recent history where we know we're just not going to be up for the fight, we immediately seem to be ready for it. And it's chalk and cheese from when we're sitting on this podcast talking about the Reading game where we didn't say we were looking forward to any of the games immediately. It was good to see that change of light and shed some positivity into the performance. But what a way to start.
No, it was fantastic. I mean, I think the system that Everett's trying to play is, I think it's ultimately, it's quite complicated in terms of, having not done it before, and then somebody comes in and then expects you to, or wants to implement it and wants to try and get it right. And I think you can see that there's been some games where we've got it right, and what he's trying to do, there was a perfect example of it, like you say, last night, that goal typified it really. Kind of getting at teams quite quickly, playing some decent possession football, but also not being afraid to mix it and the high press, etc. And I think it's a bit different to what we were playing. It's a lot different, isn't it? And I think it's a system that eventually, when the penny drops, I do think we'll be miles better for it. I think we already are. But it was a prime example of what Everett's trying to do. But there's been some games where it's been nowhere near coming off because the players are learning. It's like when you teach kids, some days they'll get it and you'll go, oh, the pennies drops. The next time they'll come in and they'll go, oh, not sure about this. You've always got to recap and go back to it. The problem is he's trying to do it in a season where we're down at the bottom four, and it's difficult, isn't it? But you can see the green shoots of it, and like he keeps saying, the process must come before the outcome. But the good thing is we've had two really good outcomes this week. But that goal was I think just typified what we're trying to do. Fast paced, getting the wing backs involved because they have to have an attacking edge to them. And as he said, Lyons, as much as we all love him and he has a really great engine on him, he just doesn't seem to be a strong finisher. Whereas Imre, I think
there's a massive difference between coming from that Premier League outfit and just knowing he's such a better player, isn't it? Like we had Dujon Sterling, we've had obviously a fire. When they come from that sort of background, you just think you've just got that aura about them being technically so much better.
He's an Everett player, and I think if we had 3 or 4 more players of Imre's kind of stature and athleticism, and I think maybe you'll see that in January, the recruits, the signings that hopefully we recruit, regardless whether it's on loan or permanent, might be in that mould where you have to be able to handle the ball. But you have to be able to handle yourself as well, don't you, really? And just, put it about a little bit. Imre against Carlisle, I mean, we were 4-1 up and he's risking himself to get injured by and everyone's like, especially Everton, I was right behind that. I was like, oh, for God's sake. But I think that's the kind of guy he is. He's just 100% committed, focused. He's a beast. He's a beast of a player that unfortunately will probably end up playing higher than this level. So if we don't get up there quick, we haven't got a chance of keeping him like a fire. He'll play in the Championship, I'm sure he will, but hopefully we keep him to the end of the season. But yeah, it was brilliant start. I love the fact that Rotherham fans were still going up the stairs, getting the seats, and they turned around and saw the ball hit the net. That's always good.
Yeah, it's nice for us to finally take the impetus in games, of course. Victor Walker, welcome back, mate. The interesting to see keep on the bench. Yeah, it's something that Everett employed at Bolton, isn't it? As in hindsight, it's a masterstroke giving us an additional player, and we've got the players to actually be on the bench as well, which is great. But it's something he used at Bolton, and I traditionally I don't like it, Hoggy, but if it gives you another outlet or gives you something different on the bench, I suppose he's willing to take that risk and be brave, I suppose. But it literally takes one injury and CJ Hamilton isn't keeping nets, isn't it? So it's really weird for me to visualize like something going wrong, and not that I want it to, but you're relying on the fitness of a goalkeeper or no red cards, of course.
Yeah, you're playing the percentage game, and in hindsight, like was mentioned by Big Dog, it's a masterstroke. The reality is, the minute it goes wrong, he's a complete and utter idiot, and he's cost us the game. But I think that's a risk he's willing to take in terms of percentages. But I mean, more importantly, I think, are we going to do a sweepstake to see who it is who'll pick the gloves up if it ever comes to it? Who do we think it might be that take the gloves?
Probably Imre, to be fair, even though he's 4'0", he's probably be well up for it. But I'll go Fletcher just because it seems
Yeah.
like the guy would do it. But yeah,
I'll go for Albie Morgan turning into a version of the monk from Mean Street or something. Mean Machine rather.
Mean Street
That's
hybrid.
good, yeah.
It's great to see how much in-game coaching ever actually does. Yeah, I mean, he said he said he loves managing more than he did playing, and that says a lot because he loved playing football as a defender as well. So, PFC 442 said last 2 games we have started carrying no passengers. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Give Ehekwe his chance, didn't he? And he's definitely someone said husband going in goal. CJ's quickest off his line. So we'll just do a podcast on random goalkeepers. Blackpool, that'd be better. I said also it was good to see us close down the opposition angles, restricting their passing, and off the ball pressure was very good too. Yeah, absolutely. Hoggy, I'll stay with you. Rotherham had a quick chance to reply, half decent cross from the left hand side. And I thought husband was just going to deal with it, but he decided to give us all an early heart attack, and we thought it was potentially going to be 1-1 with it just falling through his legs. He fell over, I don't know. And then Hugo wasn't expecting a mistake, and it was obviously a bit of pressure off when it just hit him, and Peacock Farrell can pick up the ball. But nearly an instant reply from Rotherham.
Yeah, I think I'll probably due that little bit of luck in terms of our overall performance throughout the 90 minutes. I think that little self trip up or swing and a miss from husband actually woke himself up, because after that he was genuinely phenomenal, and I think it's only right to point out he's taken his fair share of pelters on the pod and from Blackpool fans previously last night. If he can perform like that for the rest of the season, he'll probably be close to being our player of the season, because that's how good his performance was last night. So the comment already about the shithousery, he knew when to slow the game down, he knew when to get up people's backsides in the ear of the referee, but you could see it doing it in the polite way, smile on his face, always reminding him that he's there.
He seems to be more smart about it more than aggressive, which was maybe his maturity as ex-captain, but also in his age as well. But there was a lot more of a composure down that side last night.
100%, and that not just in around that whole side of the pitch with Coulson as well. I thought Coulson had a good game last night. Probably reassured by having husband behind him. Again, Horsfall next to him. It just seemed a lot more solidified. His diagonals as well, that he's obviously famous for. You can see what we're trying to do with it. In terms of the ball over the top, we nearly got one through to Emery and Lyons when he came on. Yeah. And we know they've got pace to get in behind and exploit the opposition's left back. So, yeah, a really, really good, barring that slip, a really, really good performance from husband last night, and long may it continue.
Not to bypass the fact that Evert's diagonals were out of this world. I think Holloway, when he was on this podcast, used to teach about switching the ball and giving the opposition to shift, obviously, and if they become successful, it creates a lot of momentum up front, doesn't it? So if he can start getting that into the players and have the confidence to try it, it's kind of risk-free, isn't it, at the end of the day, unless he plays a crap ball and they're in on goal. But it'll be nice to add that dimension to our game as well, like we had under Ollie as well, and if he can put that into our team, that'd be fantastic. Martin, the second or third coming of Josh Bowler now, playing as a number 10, just a bit on him. Defensive work he alluded to last night. You've got to think about their CMs, you've got to think about their CDMs, you've got to think about their right backs coming in, centre backs moving forward. He said in this position he's got so much to learn from, but he's really enjoying and flourishing in it. I like the fact that he can use his ability to move the ball left and right, pass the ball to Imre in the first minute, move the ball left, or have the two opportunities he had. And shortly after their chance to make it 1-1, he had the chance jinking in the box and it's nearly slammed it in the right-hand side of the goal, and the keeper made a half-decent save, should make the save, but again, just shows you as he starts to grow in his position, bear in mind he's just come back from injury, that he's going to have a lot more chances like that, because he had another one in the second half as well.
Yeah, and I think he needs to step up, because we don't really have anybody in the squad naturally who plays that position really. So he's got to try his own. I think it's just great to have him back. I think he's obviously taken time to find his feet. He had no pre-season, did he really? And he's had a weird career the last couple of years. But he obviously loves it here. You know, we've got this theme at the moment of players who are like people like who are obviously Everton and Bowler that are back here, having been here before, and genuinely seem to love the place, which is what we've lacked so much over the years. You know, just people picking up a wage. It's great to have people who really want to be here. But he's a smart, clever player, Bowler, and I never really saw him playing anywhere other than on the wing. But it just goes to show with a bit of coaching and the willingness to take on that knowledge, and he's going to be a threat. And he's just got to somehow turn those great positions into lethal finishing. And I know as a winger, he's never been a great finisher. I don't think he possibly ever will be. But
he scored like 5 goals, 6 goals for us, didn't he? So
yeah,
he's definitely a better assister than he is a scorer.
He will
because his weight of pass is phenomenal. Remember against Stoke? I think was it Bolo scored or Yates scored?
Yeah.
I should know that.
Yeah, Bowler.
Yeah. There's just a pass between the two. He's just excellent.
It's great. It's great to have him here and enjoying his football again. And Evert's clearly seen, you know, where he can fit him into this team. Because could you imagine Bowler just being sat on the bench, being fully fit in this system? You know, Banks is having to do that, but Bowler has to.
I genuinely think that he's going to base this team around Imre, because it literally looked like he lost his dog when Imre went down against Carlisle. So he just thought, I've just waited all this time and now I'm going to lose him again. And then I think Bowler is pivotal in that 10. I think he's going to make those two the be all and end all of this system, because when he gets start players around them that he suits his midfield, I think there'll be the magic that make this team sparkle. I think he really likes the two, and that's why he's made Josh Bowler play in that 10 and not as a wing back, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be frightening when Ennis and Taylor as well, but especially Ennis get back in that team and kind of like, you know, latching on to passes from Bowler. It could be quite a you know, a dangerous prospect for other teams. That
I think it's a great point, Martin. I think you look at our two strikers that are there now in terms of Bloxham and Fletcher. They're very different types of strikers compared to Ennis and Taylor. You know, certainly in terms of that little threaded through ball. You'd like to think that, like you say, Taylor and Ennis are going to be along that back line, left, right, all game, waiting for Bowler just to slot them through. So yeah.
Question for you, Hoggy, while you're still talking on that subject then. Big Dog Walker, how good was Bloxham's performance? I think one of his best for Blackpool, in my opinion, last night. His running certainly broke up the defence a lot more, but especially as his natural position isn't a centre forward, where will he go with Ennis and Taylor back? He had a weird career at Shrewsbury because obviously played on that wing, obviously gave husband a torrid time, and at Shrewsbury he's kind of the main man, but he like Ebert said last night, he's never really nailed a position down because he's been used so many positions. So it will be interesting, and maybe your opinion on that, Hoggy, on when Ennis and Taylor do come back. Do you think Ennis will jump straight in, or do you think he'll have to earn the shirt?
I think he'll have to earn the shirt. I think Everett will be fairly keen on, you know, if players are performing, that they'll keep the shirt, and if the strikers, and they're more likely going to be scoring, aren't they, or assisting, so that should be a good thing. But Everett alluded to it last night. I think he said, you know, they've had to work on him becoming a striker, and I can't see Bloxham being the kind of winger in this formation who's going to be. I think he's got the same problem as Banks. He'll want to go forward rather than back. So I think that Everett will look to use him as one of what will be 4 strikers. And if he plays like last night, then, you know, Everett's got a great headache to look forward to when Ennis and Taylor do come back, because he set the standard from, like I said, from the first goal, off the ball runs. But for me, one of the most impressive things, you know, his finish or anything like that, was in the second half. There was I think we just up and under the 60-yard ball. We were under a bit of pressure, and he was the only player in their half. And you saw him eyeball the centre half. It bounced once. He thought, do you know what? I'm going to have this. And he's absolutely launched his body in fairly, been aggressive, won the ball, thrown their centre half to the side, then knocked it out wide. I think Emre had eventually made up the ground up the pitch, and we've retained possession. You know, we've gone from the edge of our box with an up and under effectively to retaining possession back down by their corner flag and attacking, because he simply fancied it and put himself about, whereas that's not always been the case.
Yeah.
Locker playing Bowler's new role. I kind of like it. His trickery is pretty decent. I think the most important thing for Bloxham is to nail down a position, because you won't want to be used as a bit part player in different positions, in my opinion. But it's definitely a good headache to have, like you say. So I think his fitness is.
Just to add in as well, I think going back to the two kind of strikers we are, you look at Taylor and Ennis as little men in comparison to Fletcher and Bloxham, and I think if you're going for a big
weird that those two work.
I think moving forward you might see kind of a Bloxham coming on for Fletcher.
Well, we know how
the
Ennis and
last 20
Fletcher
or
work,
whatever.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think weirdly the player that you want starting in front all the time is Fletcher, and we'll come on to him in a second. But on that subject, Martin, Fletcher and Bloxham again. I think it was Bloxham that started the move and put, it was a horrific pass. Don't get me wrong, from Rotherham lad, passed it backwards. I've got his name. You have to excuse me, but what they did with in transition, as I like to use in Hoggy's favourite 2 words, was a fantastic ball to Fletch. And I actually thought he messed up the opportunity a little bit by dragging it wide, and the touch wasn't fantastic. But technically, Fletcher's brilliant. And although he dragged it quite wide, it might have been for good reason to get it back into the middle. It might just be because he made the wrong decision. Who knows? But the ball in wasn't too shabby at all. And a bit of luck, obviously, with the shot taking a slight nick. But they created that luck by being quite clinical. And it's despite us moaning about creativity in this team, but with all of those players in the mix, it's had a concoction of confidence and moving the ball forward. And those two worked really well together. And since Cardiff, they haven't really had that energy and that same effect. So it's really nice to see, obviously, him, Fletch, setting up Bloxham and Bloxham to get his goal, because he thoroughly deserved it.
It is, and I think Bloxham, he was pretty much discarded by Bruce, wasn't he? I think Steve Bruce had pretty much said, "I'm not having you." He dropped him from a lot of match day squads, and it is good to see him getting back in. And it's amazing what you do when you get a run in the team, isn't it? Started against Cardiff, did really well against Cardiff, I think, and he's found his feet. He's not been perfect every week, but he's getting in there and he's showing he can be a bit lethal. And Fletcher's the perfect foil for him. I think Fletcher did really well with that setup. Just great, just really, really good. When you consider that we'd only scored 4 goals away from home up till yesterday, to score 2 in the first few minutes of the game effectively is just brilliant. So yeah, it's just great. I don't mind who scores the goals as long as someone does. And I think there's always been a player in there with blocks, and we've just not seen it regularly enough. But if, like Everett said, if you put your arm around players and you show them a bit of love, they will respond, rather than being told you're shit and you're not even in the 18, which I could never really understand why out of everybody, Bloxham was the one that got picked on. I don't think he was right, really. I didn't think he deserved that. So yeah, great.
Word on the goal quickly, Hoggy. Just give your opinion on it.
Yeah, again, probably deserve that little bit of luck in terms of the slight deflection. But again, really well done by Fletch to get his head up and have a look for his strike partner. And like I say, Evo had talked about it in his presser at the end, didn't he? Saying he'd worked on that little bit of movement in terms of being a striker and bringing him. And we spoke about it previously under Bruce when we talked about our 2 strikers up front. It felt like they were on completely different wavelengths. One to go front, one to go back, and the ball would just land in the middle, and you're frustrated. So it's nice to see those kind of, like Everett said, those relationships, those runs, those patterns starting to come together and come to fruition and to sticking the ball in the back of the net.
Absolutely. That saw out a fantastic first half. And it'd be remiss of me, Hoggy, not to stick with you in the goalkeepers union. A fast start from Rotherham. Made a couple of substitutions and a phenomenal 1-2. I think if Blackpool created that opportunity, would be screaming about it. It was a fantastic bit of movement on the edge of the box, a fantastic shot, an even better save from Peacock Farrell. And we did score and win against Carlisle, but without Peacock Farrell, it's probably a completely different game. And this was one of his saves of the season, probably the most important time to make such a save away from home 2-0, desperate for 3 points after your rivals sort of winning their games on Tuesday. And he kind of just quietly went about his business. But for me, it's an absolute phenomenal save, which wasn't really talked about as much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree. Spot on. I don't want to sound too much like Roy Keane, but that is his job. It's what he's there to do. But that's what we've known about previously with the individuals in this squad, and that's why we've not been getting results, because we've not been doing the jobs, the basics correctly. But he's a good goal. He's an international goalkeeper, and it was a really, really good save, low down to his left, like I say, coming out of the dressing room after half time, being switched on straight away. Was really, really important. And as well, not just his shot stopping, he was more mobile in and around corners. He maybe flapped at a couple, but he plucked a couple out the air too also. Really, really big save, because that could have been a turning point if you concede so early after half time. And again, even the Carlisle game, like Martin said, the outcomes have been good of these 2 games. Defensively, I'm sure Everton and Craney are aware of it. We've probably given away far too many chances for their liking. And the 2 saves he made against Carlisle on Sunday were genuinely Premier League saves. If that's Alisson for Liverpool or whatever, or Donnarumma for City, they're getting shown time and time again. They were absolutely superb. So yeah, good to see him in a good bit of form and get a well-deserved clean sheet.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. We've usually conceded, like Cardiff, his performances deserve a clean sheet, but he's made one little error and it's gone in. So it was fantastic to see for the defence in him yesterday, which we'll come on to in a second. BBC 442 said how fast have the fitness levels come up, and it looks like the stories that came out under Bruce. I think many people made it clear Bruce was at training, but maybe the effort and the what do you call it? The detail and the fitness levels probably weren't worked on as much as Everett wants to see. It needs to work in this system. So I think you're right, and I think the more the season goes on, we'll start to see a lot more sharpness. And long may it continue, maybe even into next season. Of course, we don't know the outcome of this season yet. The first focus needs to be getting out of this relegation zone. But the more the season goes on, hopefully we can enjoy the players and what they're giving us on the pitch. It was certainly a lot better last night as well. Martin, a couple of more talking points. We spoke about it earlier, but Bowler's chance has got to be 3-0 at that point, hasn't it? Out of all the chances in the world to fall to Bowler, I thought he would just tap it into the box, but he's decided to absolutely welly it, and the keeper really just, as I said, not an easy save, but it makes it a lot easier for him when he could just tap it into the corner and it's 3-0. But again, really nice move, and Bloxham's ball into him was superb. It was like a drilled, but not too heavy, not too fast ball into his feet, and it was the perfect touch for him to just shift it to the left, and it should be 3-0, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean the sort of the forward play in the second half, it was really few and far between, wasn't it? I think it was we only had maybe, towards the end we were getting a bit more joy, but that chance kind of came after a sustained bit of them putting balls in the box and us heading it away mainly. But he's just got to put it to the keeper's, to the side of the keeper, and he's just hit it straight at him, really too central. A little bit more cute, rather trying to finesse it really, rather than blasting it at it would have been the thing to do. But again, it'll hopefully that'll come with a bit more composure and a bit more belief, I suppose, and getting rid of that little bit of rustiness. But Bowler's well capable of bending that round the keeper rather than smashing it at him. But luckily it didn't matter. But I think again maybe it's as well because we didn't really have many journeys into their final third, did we? Because we couldn't really get out. Although never thought we would concede. But I didn't, we were a little bit scruffy with what we were doing, and we were giving them far too much of the ball, really. But yeah, he should have scored, really. But hopefully next time it won't be long before he's slotting 1 or 2 in and finishing it off, because he's got everything apart from that bit, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we talk about the third goal, and could we talk about CJ being an impact sub, Hoggy? But I want to talk about the defensive shape. I think Martin's right. I think, and what I said at the start of the show, I still think when we're in defending, I still think it feels sometimes that we're just working on getting the ball out and not having really, because it wasn't last-ditch defending, wasn't it? It wasn't needed to be aimless balls back out to them, but a few times yesterday when they put the ball into the box, we'd have the ball at our feet and just kind of welly our boot at it and not really have. I don't think we should have a plan every time and just go straight on the attack, but the worrying thing is against better opposition, if we keep giving the ball on the edge of the box, someone's going to score a better goal or someone's going to work the ball a little bit better than Rotherham did yesterday. However, you could argue that we dealt with most of their attacks for a lot of the night. I know they made it quite difficult for us falling on the floor and getting free kicks and being quite aerial. But Hubby coming back in, Heckway obviously making amends for the Reading game, and of course Horsfall, who I think deserves a mention. 11 duels won most out of all the defence, and I think we got the Horsfall last night that we saw, that played for Stockport. But overall, obviously the saves from Peacock Farrell, the wing backs obviously being a lot better, and the defensive line, despite our reservations, they really stood up for the badge and gave us everything we kind of wanted after that Reading match, of course.
There was a bit of everything, wasn't there, in terms of it was a really good team effort. Again, I don't want to sound too like Everett. It started at the front in terms of we did whatever was necessary at that moment in time. Good game management. And again, I think a lot of that comes back from someone like Husband back in the side. completely echo what you said about Horsfall. He was absolutely phenomenal. He literally spent that whole game with a smile on his face, having an absolute battle with that Moore up front for Rotherham. It was great to see. And that's his bread and butter. He'll do that every week. So hopefully that can continue. But again, I talked about the chance that blocks someone before. There's nothing wrong with sticking your foot through it anywhere. If needs must, so be it. As much as Everett will, absolutely want to try and play our way out and find feet at times, that's fine. But there's a time and a place to do that. Again, going back to Iekwe, is like I say, it felt more often than not. It was often his clearances, whether it be a header that would land back in towards a dangerous area or a ball in centre midfield that would sometimes be a bit loose and put us under a little bit of pressure. So we certainly need to tidy up in them areas as such. But I want to go back to I can recall when I was watching it. I made a note of the time between the 31st and the 33rd minute of the first half. Rotherham had the ball for the whole period, but as a shape, it was absolutely brilliant to see. We had James Husband pressing out from his position on the left side centre half all the way to the halfway line, tracking their man back. We had Honeyman, who was starting the press, so you'd have Bloxham and Fletcher as the two up front. But when the centre halves had the ball, they wouldn't go. It'd be Honeyman who'd drive it through. And we simply didn't give them an inch. It was absolutely phenomenal. You could just tell it's exactly what they've been working on all week. And it's starting to come to fruition that, if, again, as Honeyman moved out of his position in the middle, you'd then get your wingers would tuck inside a little bit, so it would become a flat four. And it goes back to when Everett kind of bit back a little bit after the Harrogate game when he said, it's 3-5-2 the way forward. He snapped and kind of said, it's not 3-5-2 or structures, as he called it. He said, it's flexible in game. And if you go back and watch those two moments, you see us, we changed it to 3-5-2, to 4-3-3, to 4-4-2. And because we needed to do that to defend as they were trying to play through, and they couldn't. They just kept going back to the goalkeeper, and eventually they went long, and we won a simple throw-in. And then that's kudos to the coaching staff, but also again the players for implementing it. And that for me is the big positive, because if they can start to do that now, and we talked about benchmarks and standards being set, well, that's it. You've all proved you can do a job, and you've got to be switched on to be able to do that and pick up from other people. But that's how you will win games of football in this league and start to move up to the dizzy heights of maybe 19th or something exciting on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely, Martin. Just adding to what Hoggy said, it is almost a back sort of four there in shape, with Jordan Brown actually playing a much more defensive role. I know he got booked and now he's banned against Lincoln. To be interesting to see who comes in. Probably natural replacement is Evans, but depends how quickly he wants to move the ball in that midfield, and Helby maybe play more advanced for Bowler like he did against Rotherham. But it's interesting to see that the front sort of 4 or 5 there, but also the defence, as we already said, that Hubby and Coulson protecting each other, so to speak, both know how to do the defensive part of the game, but both enjoy that position between the two of them. Obviously, Hubby couldn't play wing back nowadays, but he's certainly better as a centre back. But tight structure, and as you said, the press was led by the forwards, which enabled them to go long all the time, and the defence to deal with it a lot better. But Hoggy's point spot on, that defensive shape is a lot more different, a lot more compact, that we saw against Reading and even Cardiff, of course, who gave us such a high line.
Yeah, and this is what we've been saying. I think there'll be some games where what he's trying to preach has worked, or we've got to remember that this team is not used to winning, and this team has had a hell of a battering from everybody with the way it started under Bruce. And as I say, they're not used to winning, and they're not used to seeing out games particularly, and they're not used to kind of, and then someone comes in and changes it, and it is a big upheaval. And they'll be like against Reading, it was all right for 20 minutes, and as soon as they concede a goal, it's like, oh God, here we go again, because we've been doing this all season. It's about moments, isn't it? Like Everett says it a lot, moments football. We take our moments when they come, like we did against Rotherham and Carlisle. We conceded against Carlisle and go up the other end within a few minutes and score. That's the difference between what was going on beforehand and what's going on now. But I think people are obsessed with formations, and we all say it. And I just trust Everett that he knows far more about coaching than we do. And it does. I remember Critzy saying that. Though,
I hope he does.
I hope that's the point. But remember that fans forum when Critzy kind of snapped back at some fans and he said it's not always through it. The thing is, we all kind of ridiculed that because we didn't have any faith in him particularly. But he probably was right that there are times when it switches to a 4, and people do conditioning.
You have to see it though. There's no point in a manager saying all we are a force sometimes, and you can blatantly see the players don't really understand. Last night, as Hoggy said,
Yeah.
Imre almost playing in a free with Blocks and Fletch switching between the two and someone running down the middle. You could see that free in attack.
Yeah.
Imre's energy, obviously, for 60 minutes was out of this world, and it just adds that dimension to the team when you've got Bowler picking up the ball in the middle thinking, oh shit, we've got to defend this, and then you see a bombing right back absolutely taking you out of position, so it gives you something to think about. And then obviously you've got players shifting to your left. It's a scary thought when you've got that much quality up the pitch, and there's been lots of teams over the years we've seen at Bloomfield Road overload us like that, and we know what's coming, so fingers crossed we can continue that momentum.
I think Everett's very clever in what he's trying to do, but I also think he's very clever in the way he manages himself, because I think the way it ended at Bolton, he'd become a bit of a hothead. And I'm not saying, I mean, the shit that he gave Mark Hughes on Sunday, by the way, everyone should have been there for that. It was absolutely brilliant. I saw it on TV. It was great. I mean, it's great. Mark Hughes is a bit of a gobshite anyway, I think. And the fact that he gave it him back. But he does seem to have tempered a lot of things. And I think that probably transfers to the team in terms of attack when you can attack, but literally get into that disciplined shape when you need to. And I think he's gone away and learned that where he went wrong at Bolton, that I think he was at times a little bit reckless, and I think he probably wound up his players too much, so they were a bunch of hotheads too. And I think he's learned that he I genuinely think he wants the best for this club, obviously because it's his job, but secondly because I think he really does want to be here and loves it. And I think he knows that the best way to do that is to probably be a slightly revised version of how he used to be as a manager. And I think he's showing that discipline, that cuteness, that smartness, and probably like. He stands out in an interview, we won 3-0, and when people take a still image of it, they go, Jesus Christ, did we get battered 8-0? Because you can't really. He's very much like this now, whereas I think at Bolton he was full of it, wasn't he? I think he's learned to maybe temper himself a little bit, and it must the team's the model of you, isn't it, in your image? So I think that's how we're doing it now. We are playing percentages, but we go for it when we can go for it, and we pull back a little bit when we need to. And I think it's the smartest way to be.
Absolutely. All right, last 2 points there. We've got Ben patiently waiting to talk all about his high-flying Lincoln. But Hoggy, can't believe I'm saying this, but have we found the perfect position for CJ against Carlisle? He was a nuisance, and yesterday he came on, disrupted that front line, had a couple of chances as well as assisting, tackling relatively well. I know the goal's a calamity, but with no defensive responsibilities, we're seeing a player that can scare the opposition, and you don't want to defend against someone that quick, obviously, in the 60th, 70th, 80th minute, whatever time he comes on. But it kind of gives him a little bit of freedom to be himself a little bit more rather than worrying about being obviously a wing back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on behalf of Kurt, it's only fair to say is his perfect position on the bench. Yes, would be Kurt's answer. However, I know what you're saying, and again, more importantly, if ever is to use him as that impact sub, you've got to be mindful that those defenders who we're playing against will have spent 60, 70 minutes running round after Imre, Bloxham, potentially Ennis and Taylor moving forward. Do you want to see CJ Hamilton coming on? Absolutely. Hell no, you don't. And again, if we're in front, like we saw with the third goal perfectly last night, other teams are going to start committing additional players forward. That element of space, CJ's... I've always liked him and said, look, if you play to his strengths, you're going to get a good, impactful player at League One level. That's exactly what it is. And if that's where he's at now in terms of our career under this, or his career under this manager, then so be it. Because again, everyone has their part to play. And if you're coming on for the last 20 minutes and setting up goals, potentially grabbing one himself, he could have grabbed one himself. Probably should have done really. Then yeah, so be it. It's all about moving the team forward together and understanding your role.
Yeah, Everett said after the game that he showed him his best bits, had a heart-to-heart with him, and probably just try to rekindle his flame for being the footballer that he knows he can be. But BFC 442, in my opinion, knocked the nail on the head when he says CJ needs a job, as he is not the sharpest baller last night, but it was more purposeful. I think it's the great word to use. He's definitely got more purpose, and he can add a lot to this team rather than being a detriment to what Everett's trying to do, I suppose. But playing mostly in the half, it could only master the ball. But yeah, the manager's had words, and sorry, Karen, mate.
As you say, CJ's one of those footballers you can see on the pitch. You can physically see on the pitch when he has time to think about things to do. You can see him start to fall to pieces in front of you. Yeah, so let's say go in terms of purpose, go as quick as you can, as close to that goal, and make something happen. Is the one simple instruction
Just
for
do
him.
what you feel is
The
right.
better for everyone. Absolutely. The less he has to think about it, the less touches he takes, the more impactful.
Was it Bristol
he is.
Rovers when he just ball would pass across goal, and instead of thinking about it, he just hit it and hit one of the best goals I think I've seen him hit. So, but in his early stages, he used to get like the Swindon game, in the COVID season when we got fans back for the first time. He was just in and out of defenders and slamming the ball across the box. And if it doesn't go in, but it creates energy, doesn't it? Rather than losing the ball and trying to defend, and it's just not very good at that. But when he's in the attack yesterday, you kind of think, "Go on, mate, get the ball," and he, eventually did. Hoggy, I'll stay with you because in that moment, obviously, their defender Tom Holmes slips. Hamilton kind of slips. Well, no foul there. They both just had a bit of a calamitous moment, but he reacts really well. And instead of trying to maybe have a shot or do something quite silly, like he should against Burton, he squared the ball and obviously gave Fletch the easiest goal of his life, and fair play to the ref because there was a touch on him as they both went down, but he allowed the game to continue and Fletch got his just deserves, and it was good to see Hamilton with an assist as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, and in terms of, we praised Bloxham before for off the ball run and being selfless. CJ's the exact same. He didn't need to square that to Fletcher. He could have been rash and swung and tried to score from a tight angle. Didn't. Got his head up, put it on a plate for him. Job done. And again, that's what builds teams moving forward in terms of selfless work and working together to make it easier for your colleague or your player next year. Brilliant. Keep it up, CJ.
Absolutely. Right, a final comment. I do apologise, Ben. Martin.
Yep.
Ash Fletcher, 11 goals now. Assist last night. Where's this guy ceiling this season if it continues, especially with the likes of Venice and stuff to come back? It was 20 goal contributions last campaign, wasn't it? But he's already, I don't know how many assists he's got now, maybe 4 or 5. He's already up there in terms of goal contributions. And we're probably seeing the player that we wanted to see all along when we got him in initially, but he seems to, his technical ability, I'm not saying he's the most incredible player in the world, of course, but his technical ability yesterday, I think for Bola's chance, it was at waist height. He opened his body up, laid it off to the wing and then moved again, but his touches are brilliant. His ability to think on the ball is very good. His finishing is getting better, of course. I know last night he really couldn't miss, but I personally think up front, if you're picking anybody, it has to be Fletcher and this person, Fletcher and that person, because I think whilst he's in this vein of form, he had something quite unique to our team. He's just not as physical in the air, but he's certainly someone that I don't think we can be without.
I think what it is with Fletcher is that a bit like last season, you're kind of watching him, and we said it so many times. I said it so many times. I was really critical of him because he seemed to be living up to what all the Sheffield Wednesday fans said, that he doesn't score and he's not going to score. And you look at his career record and it's 1 in 5 or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, here we go. And then the switch gets flicked after Christmas and he went on a great run. This season, and I suppose really you got to give him some leeway because he was playing in a team that was bereft of any creativity and no chances. And then all of a sudden, what's his record since Everett came? Is it something like 9 and 8, 8 and 9?
8 and 8, I think, so far, yeah.
Right. I mean, that's phenomenal. So that's not a coincidence. The manager has managed to get the best out of him and, again, put an arm around him. He's a technically better player than I gave him any credit for. And I will absolutely admit that on here, that I thought he was a little bit of, what's the word? A bog standard kind of striker with not much technical ability, but he's far better than that. And I loved his goal against Carlisle. I love the first one because he hammered it in the net like he's done a few times down that end this season. But when we were under the caution, we were sort of got a chance to try and reply to their goal, and he just the finish was really instinctive. He's getting those sort of goals now as well, and I think he seems to have found a home. He's had too many clubs, and I think he can get 20 this season, can't he? Surely he can get 20.
I think the quality's come back. I think I agree with that.
Yeah, no, I'm so pleased for him because now I look at him and I think, yes, you're absolutely right. I don't even question him. It's him and someone else. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, brilliant.
Right. Ben's patiently waited 20 minutes more than I kept him. I do apologise, mate. But welcome to the podcast, buddy. I'm really looking forward to Saturday's game for many reasons. It's usually a humdinger when we play Lincoln, of course. There's been some terrific games over the years, of course, not to mention that playoff final, which was a hell of a game. I'll get that in early.
Cheers for that.
That's all right. No problem at all. But welcome to the podcast, mate. I think this is get the hat trick, Paul. I'll pass it over to you.
Cool.
you can keep that forever. But welcome, and first and foremost, thank you for waiting. And how was your interview with your CEO and director of football? Was it?
Yeah, it's Thanks for me back on. I really do appreciate it. It's always good fun. We've literally sort of about an hour ago wrapped up an interview with our director of football and CEO. We had a few questions that we wanted to put to them, and they were gracious enough to oblige. So it's a really strange feeling sometimes when we ask a question like that and we just get, yeah, sure, and
it is.
They open up.
It's not allowed according to our football club. We're not allowed to talk to higher above.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, the club over the past few years has just been ridiculously transparent with a lot of stuff, and it's one thing that I think, without blowing our own a bit too much, I think it feels like it's one thing that makes it a little bit different from for us than other teams. So yeah, the video will be out if anybody does want to check it out. I don't know whether anybody would do, but the video will be out in the morning. The actual audio podcast is out about now. So it was good fun.
So Ben, your manager, Mr. Skubala, how has he gone about carrying on from last season? Obviously, you had a really strong run during that time period, despite your home walloping to us that came out of nowhere. Get that one in as well. Back Tom up. How's he carried on into this season? Obviously, you're really pushing towards the top two at the minute. Has much changed, or has it been heads down and carry on, and we'll hopefully get over the line this time?
Well, first off, I mean, you can really go off people quite quickly, when you're giving them that much stick. No, it's been a bit of a weird one. Like, I think last season kind of felt like once we knew we're basically where we were going to be, we let the season run out and kind of just experimented. Once we knew that we weren't going to go up, we weren't going to go down, so let's just experiment with a couple of different styles. We switched to 4 at the back, and got a bit more. The word is aggressive, but it's not kind of physically aggressive. It was just aggressive attacking football, and we really played that style till the end of the season, and it just seemed to work really well for us. Like I say, we knew that we were still going to be in the division next season. We weren't going anywhere, so we just had a bit of freedom. Then over the summer, there was a bit of recruitment done, and essentially we knew that would then work, that tactic. There was a conversation that we'd had previously where obviously when Skubala came in, we were playing 5 at the back, and it was kind of a hangover from Mark Kennedy's era, which was an era that we don't want to talk about anymore. So he was kind of fitting players into places where they didn't necessarily want to be playing or should have been playing. But then we went on, I think everybody knows, we went on like a 16-game unbeaten run after Christmas, and we lost out on the playoffs on the final day. So that was at the start of last season. They kind of said, right, well, let's stick with that because it worked last year. And then it didn't work as well last season, which is where we kind of switched it and went 4 at the back. And that's basically what we've done this year. There was, I think the guys on our podcast will be the first to tell you, we were not worried as such, but I think we all kind of thought, yeah, we'll take mid-table this season, because over the pre-season, over the close season, we lost Paudie O'Connor to Reading, we lost Sean Rowan to Huddersfield, we lost Ethan Arahan to Bolton, and then basically on the eve of the season, I think it was actually our first home game, we were subject to a bid from Norwich for Jovan Makama. So, essentially the crown jewels of our squad from last year disappeared overnight, and everyone just went, all right, we'll be fine with another middling season. But to be fair, the recruitment was really smart. We were heavily linked with Josh Honohan from Shamrock Rovers. And he stayed there because they got into the Conference League. So obviously, yeah, I think you'd rather play in Europe than, play at Lincoln and Port Vale on a rainy Saturday afternoon. So that kind of petered out a little bit, and then we brought Adam Reach in on deadline day. But yeah, it's just been a series of like smart recruitment and continuing to play a style that started to work for us towards the end of last season, really.
I mean, you're obviously the league position's incredible. I mean, and I don't mean that in a patronising way, but to be third at this point is fantastic. So away from home, maybe not quite as strong as at home, but home form's been absolutely spot on. And you've already had notched at what is it? I think is it 110 drawn 4, lost 5? Is that the record?
I think that's the case. Yeah.
No, but that's it's an impressive record in it, and to be third in a league where, again, despite some big hitters leaving it last season in Birmingham and Wrexham, there's still clubs that dwarf others, aren't there? People like Huddersfield and clubs like that, and Bradford, etc. So, but you've done incredibly well. But what's the difference between the home form and the away form, or the reason for those? Maybe the disparity in the performances, or the points.
Well, I think that's the question. I don't think anybody's able to give you a solid answer. I think the thing is we know that we want to play at home with a solid identity, and we want to play that front foot aggressive football, and get the ball forward quickly, not just lump it forward, but when we get the ball on the floor, we can play some really nice stuff. Like against Barnsley on Tuesday night, it was just some really, really lovely football at times. And then when we go away, I think it's weird. Sometimes, teams, we will set up to beat a team in particular rather than this is how we play, come and play against us. Yeah. If that makes sense. I know that there's quite a few teams that will do that. They'll play, this is how we play, you've got to come and match us. Whereas the coaching team will look at everything. I mean, the amount of detail that goes into the prep for every game is ludicrous, and it's kind of this is how they play, this is how we think we can beat them. So we do adapt, and obviously when you're playing a team at their home ground, they're likely to be a bit stronger and they're likely to be a bit more front-footed. So we just adapt to that more than anything else. But yeah, I don't know what it is, and I think there was the pre-match press conference today. Skubala actually said, I think people are probably giving it a bit too much credit for, the away form is poor, and he said it's probably better than most people think it is, and yeah, he's maybe got a point. But I think we're maybe staying true to the, if you win your home games and draw your away games, you'll be, as Keith Alexander once said, there or thereabouts.
Yeah, Piercy Forward says, let's hope our record against the better teams holds up listening to this. Yeah. Ben, I was going to say what's changed. It's usually a late surge for Lincoln, isn't it? I could be completely way off piste here. I could have done a bit more research into how your seasons start, but usually not this consistent. And I think you sit 10th for away form, which is obviously still a lot better than us. And obviously the home form is very decent as well. So where's the consistency come from, considering, like you've already alluded to, a lot of technical quality came out of your side? Because to sit third, and if you're going to have some consistency, or the second half of the season is as good as it always is, obviously you're going to be hopeful for easily a top 6 finish, but obviously pushing for that top 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've between us all on the podcast, we've said if we finish in the top 2, I think there will be a lot of bare asses walking around the streets in Lincoln if that happens. But I think for me, the consistencies mainly come from the stability at the back. We've got George Wickens, who maybe came under a little bit of fire last season, but new goalkeeper coming in.
Yeah, he's brilliant game at Bloomfield Road, didn't he, in the 1-1?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And he came under a little bit of stick last season, but you're always going to get stick when you're coming in to replace Lucas Jensen, who was just magnificent for us, and obviously went to Millwall for $500,000. But when he's grown in stature now, and he's looking like a really decent League One keeper. Then across the back, playing a back four, I think we found a pretty steady back four with one kind of interchangeable position. So we've got Adam Reach out at left back, Sonny Bradley, who came in to replace Paudie O'Connor, left centre back, and then the right centre back is basically between Adam Jackson and Tom Hamer. Jacko's out injured at the minute, so it will be Tom Hamer on Saturday. And then at right back, we've got Tendai Darikwa, captain, who, came in last season and was a bit of a revelation. I mean, he's the fittest man in his mid-30s that I've ever seen. Like, he's just a specimen. So I think that's really helped. And to be honest, the consistency of Conor McGrandles this season has been unreal. Like, there was a lot of people that were wondering if he could do it in that defensive midfield role, because obviously Ethan Arahan left and we were worried because, he was a massive player for us, and the rumoured fee that we got from Bolton was like, oh, that's probably not what most people thought the release clause would be. So there was a bit of grumbling about it. But right now, I don't think anybody cares that we've lost Ethan Arahan, because Conor McGrandles has just been absolutely superb. So
it's probably starting to the player that you thought you were getting when you signed him, because I know we were both linked with him at the same time when he was linked with Charlton as well, played for Charlton. And I was quite excited by the prospect of him playing in Tangerine, because technically he's showed some ability over the years that most League One teams would want. Probably didn't see that as much last season.
No, and I think that's the thing. Like, he was sitting forward of Arahan last season, and then suddenly Arahan goes and he's forced into that 6 role, and you think, oh, actually, he's pretty good. So suddenly when he's not in the team, you notice it, because he's doing all of that dirty work that nobody likes to do, and he does it so well. When he's on the pitch, you kind of just appreciate that he's there, and then when he's not there, you go, bloody hell, we're really missing him today. So I think that kind of frees up a little bit going forward. And I know the guys on the Not Top 20 pod the other week, they had a thing about, how is this working for Lincoln? Because we were playing 4 strikers in like the front 4, and we've got a number 10, we've got a striker, and then we've got 2 wingers, and we were just basically deploying strikers across all 4, and it was working for us. I think it's probably going to stop working for us now because 2 of them are out with long-term injuries, but that gives other players a chance to come in, and you've just seen the return of Jack Moylan, who is a magician. There's no other way of putting it. Like, for him to be in a Lincoln City side is just brilliant, and for him to be back is superb. So, injuries have come about, but we've got the squad depth this season to live with that, I think.
So Ben, is it very much like a 5-on-5 almost, in terms of, like you say, with having McGrandles sat in front of your pretty solid back 4, the rest of the 5 giving free reign to do what they like up top? Is there a lot of space in the middle? Does that leave, or?
I mean, so alongside McGrandles, we usually have Tom Bayliss, who has been, again, really good this season for us, and he sits kind of between McGrandles and whoever will be playing in the 10. We have tried to use the width quite a lot this season. We've maybe struggled a little bit down the right because we've been playing Rob Street down there, who is, naturally a number 9. We've tried to deploy him out to the wing, and it's been okay. He's obviously got a couple of goals he scored against Chelsea, which was one of the most crazy moments of this season for us. I think we will try and get the ball forward relatively quickly. And the thing that we're, I guess, known for at this point is we're a very high pressing side. If teams like to play it out from the back, they will know that we're there, because as soon as they start, trying to push it out, Barnsley did it on Tuesday. They played such a high line when we were attacking, and then when they got the ball, when the ball went back to the keeper, they tried to play it out, and we just pressed the life out of them for about 70 minutes.
Do you think that suits us, Martin, considering Cardiff like to press and play quite a high line? Do you think we can find success in behind?
Probably. I mean, look, obviously Lincoln are a really good side this season, but also, Cardiff, despite getting beat by us, are still going to be right up there, and we definitely found some joy. I just feel that we're better when teams want to come and have a game of football and actually want to be brave and do that, I think, rather than retreating deep. And, we've this season, no matter who's been in charge, we found that very hard to deal with. But I think if people want a game of football and fancy an attack, it could be a really good game Saturday, just based on that basis. So hopefully, because it's the kind of game I think we all want to see, really.
Yeah, Ben, we've talked about your setup. I don't know if it is like a 4-2-3-1 or a variation of, but you've gone through some of your key players there. But in terms of injuries, etc., who do you think is going to have a big impact sort of at Bloomfield Road on Saturday? I know Rico Hackett's scored a couple the other night as well, and you've got some decent players that we already alluded to. But who do you think is going to make the biggest impact?
It honestly depends who we deploy in those top two positions. I mean, like I say, Jack Moylan has just been a mini revelation since he's come back. We beat Port Vale at home, excuse me, at home a couple of weeks ago, and the second half was so turgid. I mean, we won the game, but everybody came away from it going, well, that was a bit naff. And it's weird. Like, there's just been this. If you talk to somebody outside of the club about the fan sentiment at the minute, it's almost felt like, we're in, and no disrespect to you guys at all, it's almost like we've been in Blackpool's position. There's just been grumbling, and there's been people going, oh, it's been crap and all the rest of it. I mean, probably getting dumped out of the FA Cup, getting dumped out of the EFL Trophy, getting dumped out of the League Cup in a relatively short space of time, it feels like that's probably contributed to it. But, as Martin said, we're top on the home table, we're third in the league. We can't really understand why we felt as a fan base, like certain sections of it have felt that low about it. And then all of a sudden, Jack Moylan comes back in, and it was the second half at Wickham when we went 2-0 down, and came back to 2-2, and we were within a whisker of pulling it back to and winning the game. And then unfortunately Wickham went and got a last minute winner. But that second half belonged to Jack Moylan, and everyone just went, oh, this is what we've been missing. So he did a similar thing on Tuesday night against Barnsley. I think if he is on form, which it feels like he is, because it's almost like he's got a point to prove because he's been out for so long with injury, I think Jack Moylan's probably going to be the one to watch on Saturday from our point of view. But like you say, I mean, I know we've spoken about Rico Hackett before, Tom. He is a player that runs very hot and cold at times, and at the moment he's in a bit of a hot streak. So I'd be delighted if he can continue that.
For sure. We play. Oh, did you have a question? Sorry, mate.
No, I was just petrified of the idea of watching Lee Evans run around for 90 minutes trying to chase Jack Moylan, if I'm quite honest with you. But anyway,
chase anybody.
Fine.
I was just going to ask Ben, just before we close off, just how you think the game's going to pan out. Obviously, you listened to a lot of how we played against Rotherham, and I don't want to talk negatively against obviously what we just spoke about for nearly an hour on the performance and how better we were, but they're obviously a completely different side to you. And I know, judging by a few of your games, you don't always keep the ball as well. So I don't know if we're going to take the game to you, whether you'd enjoy that more or whether you're going to press us into making mistakes and hopefully to carve out your chances. I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be a really interesting game, but how do you think you'll cope with, say, two bombarding, mainly one in Danny Imre from that right-hand side, bowler in the middle, trying to conduct sort of things, and obviously a fairly informed striker as well on ourselves? It's going to make for potentially a really end-to-end game, but will you enjoy us coming on to you as much as the vice versa?
I think so. We've got a weird situation at Lincoln at the moment where if we have more possession, we tend to lose the game.
Yeah.
And we've tried to look at the numbers. We've got Chris, our stats man on our podcast. He's looked at it and he's just gone, I don't know. But whatever it is, like, if we have more possession, we kind of, well, if we don't lose the game, we probably won't win it. So, I mean, example, and I keep referring back to Tuesday night, but I think we had about 36% possession against Barnsley and we won 3-1. It's just...
Very clinical. Yeah, I think eight shots on target. They had the same amount of shots, but only 4 on target.
Yeah. So, and that's it. Like, we will allow teams to have the ball, but I think the plan is to allow them to have the ball kind of in their own half. If we can keep them out of that final third, it's it's possession without a purpose, I think is essentially what's been said a few times. If we can have 30% possession, but of that 30%, it's all in the opposition half or in the final third, we're probably going to have more joy with things. So I would expect us to kind of let Blackpool come on to us a little bit, and we'll try and hit on the counter, or we'll press quite high. If you guys like to play it out from the back, that's going to be a fun one
against Rotherham, which I kind of liked, if I'm honest, because we went longer a few more times, or tried a diagonal pass rather than doing what we did a few times where it's carved a lot of errors leading to goals as well. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's always an entertaining one from my perspective. When we play you guys, I mean, obviously, yeah, I will mention it. The Wembley game was what it was, but yeah, I think it should be an entertaining game, and particularly I think we've probably got our tails up a little bit from a good home win on Tuesday night. And it was a strong performance as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I always ask the same question, but in 30 seconds, give us how you think you can hurt us at Bloomfield Road and where you think you can potentially concede some chances. Give us a little bit of maybe vulnerability so we can look out for, where we're going to be utilising, and then where you think you're going to be strong.
In terms of vulnerabilities, I think if you've got somebody that's very pacey up top, Sonny Bradley is not. He will kick it, he will head it, he will put tackles in, but he is not a fast man. So yeah,
the warrior though, and he is a strong man.
We wanted we wanted somebody to replace Paudie O'Connor who would play if an arm was hanging off, and we got Sonny Bradley, which is exactly what we needed, and he's been a revelation for us. Yeah, I think pace down the centre. If you're running at Sonny Bradley, that will probably be where an area of weakness could potentially be. In terms of strengths, like I said, I think we've got the thing that I've said most this season is that we're trying to be better than the sum of our parts, and we've got to be in this division because we don't have the resources of Huddersfield, of Luton, of Cardiff. And if we want to perform, and if we want to go up, and if we want to do what we're trying to eventually do, if we want to do it sooner, we've got to be better than what we are as a collection. And I think previously we have been that, but now we're better than the sum of already very good parts. So I think, we're aiming to be way better than we are, or way better than we should be in inverted commas based on, monetary figures and things like that. So yeah, I think the mentality of the squad, the mentality of the team, and just the togetherness and the team spirit is massive for us. We've got a really good group of players, and it feels like, and this will probably ring zero bells with you guys at all, but it's kind of back in the early 2000s. We had a run to the playoffs after nearly going bankrupt, and that was under Keith Alexander, and it was kind of as a signed players from non-league. I think he signed somebody that used to be a postman, who then went on to be our top scorer and is now a bona fide Lincoln City legend. It was that kind of thing. We were way better than the sum of our parts, and we're now trying to do that with good parts. So yeah, hopefully we can do that and go on to do something pretty special this year.
Awesome. Well, thanks for giving us, and thanks for being so patient as well. But thank you for giving us a cracking insight on your team coming into Bloomfield Road on Saturday. I am really intrigued by this game because we're blowing hot and cold at Bloomfield Road at the moment. So if we repeat the Reading game, it could be a cricket score. But if we turn up like we did against Cardiff, it's going to be a very good game. So, Hoggy, any closing thoughts before we finish the podcast, mate?
Yeah, just thinking about the game, it really could go either way. I think one question we've still got to answer properly yet under Everett is if we go behind, how do we really start to react? Do we have the kahunas to stick to the game plan and keep trying to play through them? Like Ben says, it feels like both teams are going to have lots of chances on Saturday. So yeah, let's see who takes the most and comes away with the 3 points.
Martin?
Again, I think I'm just really looking forward to it. I'm growing in confidence with how we're trying to do things, and it'll be good to it'll be good to play against Michael Scabala's team, because I think he deserves an awful lot of credit for what he's done with Lincoln over the past sort of year and a bit. And I think it'll be a really good game. I think against an honest football club with honest fans who are not all entitled, because like we've faced a few of those in this league that think they should be wrong. But I mean, we were one of them at the start of the season. Let's be honest. But
we are still one of them, I think. But.
Yeah, but no, I think it's, again, I've said this before to Ben. It's when I first started getting into watching Blackpool, Lincoln were one of those teams that like Chesterfield and Northampton that we played every season. So Lincoln are, it's great that we're actually still playing them, really. But so no, it'd be a good game. Looking forward to it.
Part of our staple diet. Ben, before we close out, any questions for us?
None that I could probably, unless there's anything I could take back to the management team and just, give them a heads up on stuff, then I don't think I have. I'll be all right.
Show them this podcast, mate. We're the best team in the world on Wednesday night. So, right. Thank you ever so much, Ben. I know Martin's about to join you on your podcast, so I'll let you go ahead and set up for that, mate. But again, I really appreciate it. And then I'll see you again for the reverse fixture very soon.
Absolutely. No worries. Anytime. Cheers, fellas.
Take care, mate. Cheers, Hoggy, for joining us.
Pleasure. Anytime, Tom, you know that. Like I say, fingers crossed we can simply score one more than Lincoln on Saturday and pick up another 3 points, because the bowler alluded to it. We've put 2 wins together, Cup and League. It's time to really start kicking on in the league, because I know Everett said don't get too carried away with wins and too downhearted with defeats, but, based on the FIFA World Cup prices, I've cancelled my hotels in America and I've booked hotels in Wembley for May instead. So not getting too carried away like Ian says, but let's start putting some wins together and heading towards that top 6 that we need to be.
Yeah. And thanks again, Martin.
You're welcome. I'm going to go and talk a lot of nonsense on someone else's podcast now. Brilliant.
Yeah, I think we've got like 4 out of like 7 home games coming up over Christmas. So
yeah.
Is there any chance to break that hoodoo of a crap Christmas? It's going to be now starting Saturday. If we get a win Saturday, then we've got Wigan away, and then we've got Rotherham and like Port Vale at home or something like that. So we can definitely turn the screw, so to speak. But thanks again, gents. And we'll be back next week to hopefully look back at a victory at Bloomfield Road. Fingers crossed we can put 3 more points on the board and celebrate a win for Blackpool. But for now, from everyone at the It's Not Orange podcast, we'll see you again soon.